Good morning, you guys. I have something on my mind and I hope you can see me. You're on a little tripod thingy majiggy. I've had something on my mind for a bit now that really just irks me, and excuse that I'm not looking at you, I'm driving, but being an autism parent, I try really hard not to judge other parents, and this is not a video about judging other parents. I promise you, I am not trying to judge you. I just have worked really hard to get my kids where they are, and if I can share a little tiny bit of advice with any other autism mom, I'm gonna do that, because it will make your life a billion times easier, trust me. I have been an autism mom now for 9 years. My oldest son, he's almost 9, he'll be 9 in July, so 8.5 years. He started having autism, not my oldest son, my oldest one with autism, let me clarify. So he started showing signs of autism around 18 months, which is pretty typical. Up until then, he developed completely normal, everything was fine, no big deal. Well, around 18 months, I started seeing signs of autism. I know a lot of the signs of autism because I grew up with autistic siblings. So I saw little things here and there that I volunteered in an autism school. So I saw it. I knew what it looked like. And I remember going, oh my gosh, this is it. Like this, he has it. I know he has it. And then you go through a denial phase, at least I did, where it's like, I don't know if he has it. No, it can't be that, like that type of phase. And then even after they're diagnosed, I think there's that phase to an extent, because like you have this panel of doctors, at least for us, it was a panel of doctors and specialists saying, hey, your kid has autism, and it's overwhelming. Even though I already knew going into the appointment, I knew he had autism, it was still emotionally draining. And then you think, where do I start? Like, how do I deal with all this? Where do I go with all of this information that they gave me? And I remember feeling extremely overwhelmed and like, oh, I have to parent him differently because he has autism, and I can't parent him the same as my other kids, and like all these emotions started coming in. And then a few years after that, I realized something, and I wished I would have known it sooner. I wished I would have known this from day one, and not treated him differently. And let me explain why. So, for example, I believe, this is just my own personal experience, my own belief. I have 2 kids on the spectrum, and this, I believe, has extremely helped, doesn't make sense, helped them so much. Like, it has really worked for us. It is definitely something I highly recommend. I've never found a program out there that's like for autism that does this. However, it worked for my kids, for both of them. And I know every autistic kid is different, but let me explain why I think it worked. I'm not a doctor, I'm just an autism mom, but I want to explain something to you. So hopefully this comes across right, but if you do not discipline and follow through, the important part is follow through with your autistic child, you will create a monster. A monster. I mean, somebody who knows, they are so smart. It's a matter of connecting the little things in their brain to get them to do what they need to do type of thing. Like, they're smart. So smart. It's a matter of like for example, I have a video on here, I'll link it below. It was the hardest day of my autism mom life. Not medical stuff, not any of that, all that aside, being an autism mom, being a mom that deals with meltdowns and stressful stuff and appointments and all that stuff, that was the hardest day so far of autism mom life. Because Tyrez, he's our oldest one, we just call him Ty, he had the worst meltdown ever in IKEA. There's a video, proof of a video. I actually had my oldest son film his meltdown to show you guys what really autism really looks like, you know, and my raw emotions and how I was feeling and how stressed I was, that was reality then. But I stuck to my guns that day, the day where he had the worst meltdown of his life. I stuck to my guns. I told him no on something, and I followed through completely. No, not just kind of, like, he wanted a train, I said no, we left without a train. Follow through. When I followed through with him 100%, not just halfway, he realized that no matter how pissed he was and throwing a fit for 45 minutes to get from the checkouts to my car, and I was parked right in the front of the parking lot, it took 45 minutes, and I remember just being exhausted. And because I followed through, no matter how hard he threw a fit and how hard he tried, and banging his own head on the concrete floor, all of that, no matter how hard he threw a fit, I followed through. And I'm happy to say that was his last meltdown in public. He has not done that since. And I know it's different for every kid, but it was one hell of a meltdown. I am not kidding you. I thought I was going to fall apart. I remember feeling so overwhelmed and exhausted and frustrated. And had I known sooner from a very young age to follow through no matter what and not give in no matter what, and that's just one part of what we do, but had I known sooner, like a lot sooner, I think we would have been able to stop his meltdowns sooner than we did. So it's been, I don't even know when that video was, but we were living in Utah, so it's been probably at least a year, maybe two, since that video, and he has not had one meltdown since in public, not one. And even at home, he may kind of be like, I don't want to, but it's like typical 8-year-old behavior of, oh, I don't want to do that. It's not hellish meltdowns that you feel like you're going to pull your hair out because you don't know what the hell to do with your child. Those type of meltdowns. Anyway, so that's step one. That's the first part, that we follow through no matter what, no matter how hard they throw a fit, no matter what, you follow through. Eventually, they will give in. And they'll realize that you're the mom, and no matter what, they will listen. They will follow. Like, if you are consistent following through, they will be consistent with their reaction. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say that is probably way more important than the first one is we use something they're struggling with as a way to teach them. So, for example, if Ty's struggling with sensory overload, we expose him to more things that will cause sensory overload. Let me explain why. Don't freak out at me. Let me explain. You will not be able to keep them in a bubble their entire life. You can't. You are one person. There's an entire world out there, and you may die before them. Then what happens? If they're living in the real world and they don't have you to create this little bubble that you have created for them, what are they going to do? You have to think about the future with your autistic kids. You have to think about the fact that they will not always have you. It's very likely that they won't always have you. Prepare them to live in the real world. Prepare them to do things. Teach them to do things. Show them how to do things. So, like, when Ty has sensory overloads, it rarely happens anymore. But, for example, say a kid has overload with going to the store. They freak out when they go to the store. They have a hard time with it. Take them to the store all the time. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. They're going to get used to that exposure. They're going to get used to having things be loud and crazy, because that's the real world. That's normal. The house isn't always going to be quiet. Things are not always going to be quiet for them. You can't expect the world around them to change for them, because they're one person out of billions of people. They are one person. So that one person is not going to change every environment that they go to. That's unrealistic. And you have to expose them to those things, and they'll adapt. They just do. Tyrez, we expose him, especially Brecker has Asperger's, so it's a lot easier with him. But with Ty, we exposed him to everything. I took him shopping with me every single time until he was in school. Every time. And we go on the weekends still, because he needs to learn how to behave. Even if it was hard, even if he had a meltdown, we would try again. And I would never leave the store because of the meltdown. I would leave when I was ready to leave. Because he needs to realize that throwing a fit in the store isn't going to get us to go home. Like, that's not how it works. He doesn't rule the household. He doesn't rule my world. He is a part of my world. He doesn't control it. So you have to find a balance between all of that. And it's exhausting. I'm not going to lie. It is hard. It's a big pain in the ass, to be honest. But it is so worth doing, because now when we take Ty to the store, he may ask for something, but if I say no, it's no big deal. If it's loud and crazy in the store, it's no big deal. It used to be, and it used to be hell. It used to be exhausting, and he used to be afraid of things like fireworks and crazy stuff like that. But by exposing him to those things and consistently showing him new things and getting him excited to go to theme parks and roller coasters and that kind of stuff, it has proven to work. It works. He doesn't freak out all the time. He doesn't have a super hard time. He may not want to leave, but if I say it's time to go, we go anyway, whether he wants to leave or not, because it's following through. It is so important to follow through, more than it is even with a typical developing child. It is beyond important, because he's going to test your limits. He or she, your child, is going to test you. They're smart. They will test you. It's a matter of how you respond and deal with it that is going to count. So keep that in mind whenever you're in a tough situation. You are strong. You can get through this. It is not something that your child is going to rule the rest of your life. And you need to keep in mind too that you're not going to have this perfect bubble. It doesn't exist. You can try your whole heart out to create this perfect little world for them to live in, where nothing bothers them and everything's perfect, and you know, they only eat these 5 foods and it's all grand. Well, guess what? What happens when you're not here? Think about that. Tyrez now knows how to get dressed by himself. He brushes his teeth by himself. He's potty trained. My baby's waking up. He knows how to put his shoes on by himself. He knows how to get his jacket on. He knows how to eat by himself. He knows how to, you know, pull up his own freaking pants. Like, but it took us years and years and years and years to get to where we are. Years of exposing him to things, teaching him how to do it. Rather than just putting their shoes on every single day, teach them how to put their shoes on. Maybe even they'll learn to tie their shoes. I don't know. Ty doesn't know how to tie shoes. But my point is that you can create a normal-ish environment. I can't even talk, but I'm not editing this because this is from the heart. It's real. This is raw. This is exactly how I feel. So teach them. If they're struggling with something, work on it. Teach them. Be their advocate. Be the person that not only disciplines them, but stands up for them in a positive way by showing them how to do things, teaching them how to do things. Be the mom, for freaking crying out loud. Be the parent. Don't expect the world to adapt to them. It's never going to happen. As much as I would love to say that when we go to someone's house, they totally understand, they don't. They have no freaking clue. They don't live in the autism world. But I can't expect them to change their entire life for my child. Instead, now when we go places, Ty does fine. He used to make big messes, but now he cleans up after himself. So there's always a plus side to things, and there's always a way to work through it. And just keep in mind that, like, it's not going to be easy. Just don't give up. Like, don't give up, because I promise you, if you can get to where I am right now, you will be like, oh my gosh, life's amazing. Because Ty, I can confidently say, is my easiest child to take care of now. My child with severe autism is my easiest child to care for now. Easiest out of 5 kids. because of the way we parent him. So anyway, if you have questions, please leave them below. I would love to help you get through your autism journey and get through all these bumps and things a little bit more effortless than I had to do it. So thanks for watching. See you later. Bye, guys.